I received this account from a Brazilian hunter. What he described in that forest shouldn't be possible. I'm just going to repeat it exactly as he told me. He sent it to me in a series of voice messages late at night. I could hear in his voice that he wasn't performing. No dramatic pauses, no build-up for an audience. He was talking the way someone talks when they need to get something out before it suffocates them. I transcribed it as faithfully as I could. What follows is his account. I've been hunting in the Amazon since I was 14. My father taught me. His father taught him. I know that forest the way some people know their own house. The sounds, the light, the way the ground changes under your boots depending on the season. I know when something is off. What happened to me last November, I've told to maybe 3 people. My wife, my brother, and now you. I don't tell it because I enjoy it. I tell it because if I don't say it out loud sometimes, I start to wonder if I made it up, and I know I didn't. I was 4 days into a solo hunt, northeast of a small river community deep in Pará State. Not the kind of deep where you're an hour from a road, the kind of deep where the road is a memory. I'd been following signs of peccary, tracks, rooting marks, disturbed brush. Nothing unusual. I set camp near a dry creek bed on the 3rd night, ate, slept fine. The 4th morning is when things started. I woke before light, made coffee, checked my gear, and headed northeast. The forest was quiet, and I mean genuinely quiet. Not the usual morning quiet where you still hear insects and distant birds. Quiet like the volume had been cut. I noticed it but kept moving. Sometimes areas are just acoustically dead. Bad habitat. I told myself that and kept walking. About an hour in, I found the first set of prints. They were human. Or they looked human. The shape of a foot, 5 toes, heel, arch, everything in the right proportion, but they were facing the wrong way. The toes were pointing back toward me, in the direction I had come from. But the line of prints moved forward, away from me, into the trees, like whoever made them had been walking backward, except the weight distribution was all wrong for that. The forefoot pressed deepest. That's a forward stride, just on a foot oriented in reverse. I stood there a long time looking at them. I told myself there was an explanation, some deformity, an animal I was misreading in the mud. I thought about taking a photo, but something about that felt wrong. Like documenting it would make it more real than I was ready for. So I just kept walking, because that's what you do. You don't stand in the middle of the Amazon second-guessing your eyes. The prints continued alongside my path. Not constantly, but every 20 or 30 meters. There they were again, in a soft patch of ground. Same size, same backwards orientation, same confident forward-moving stride. I started to feel something I don't feel often in the forest. Not fear exactly, more like the particular discomfort of being somewhere you're not supposed to be. The quiet kept getting worse. By mid-morning I should have been hearing everything. Howler monkeys, parrots, the constant movement of insects in the canopy. There was nothing, not even wind. The trees stood completely still, and the air was so thick and humid it felt almost solid, like I was pushing through something rather than walking through it. My compass was working. I wasn't lost, but I felt something I can only describe as directionlessness, like north and south were still showing on the dial but no longer corresponded to anything real. I decided to loop back toward camp. After 40 minutes of walking, I should have reached the dry creek bed. I hadn't. I checked the compass again. I was going the right direction. I kept going. Another 30 minutes. Nothing I recognized. I sat on a fallen log, drank some water, told myself to be calm. I had a compass. I had a GPS unit. The GPS showed me a position that should have placed me near camp. But nothing around me matched. The trees were different. The ground was different. Not dramatically, just subtly wrong. Like a room where someone has moved everything a few inches while you were sleeping. Then I found my own boot prints. I had walked in a perfect circle. I know my boots. I know the tread pattern. I had gone east, looped south, and returned to within 20 meters of where I'd started, without any sense of turning, without any change in the compass reading that would explain it. In terrain I've spent years in, with a working compass. I stood very still. And right there, alongside my own boot prints in the mud, were the backwards ones again, parallel to mine, as if whatever made them had been walking right next to me the entire time. I built my camp there for the night because I didn't trust myself to keep moving. I made a fire bigger than I needed and sat with my back against the thickest tree I could find. The forest stayed silent. No insects, no movement in the canopy, nothing. Around 2 in the morning, something moved. Off to my left, 30 meters, maybe a little more. It wasn't a crash, not a startled animal. It was slow and deliberate, the kind of movement that knows it's being heard and doesn't care. I turned my headlamp toward it and saw only trees and shadow. The sound stopped the moment the light came on. I held the beam steady, long enough that my arms started to ache. Then, at the very edge of where the light gave out, just at that threshold where visibility becomes suggestion, something was standing between 2 trees. I can't tell you what it looked like. Not because I'm protecting you from something, because I genuinely cannot reconstruct it in a way that holds together. It was roughly the height and outline of a person, but the proportions were off. The way it was positioned was off. It wasn't moving, wasn't threatening. It was just standing there in the specific way that communicates awareness, the way a thing stands when it wants you to know it sees you. I kept the light on it, maybe 4 seconds. Then a swarm of insects, the first I'd heard in 2 days, erupted right in front of my face. I flinched. When I looked back, the space between the trees was empty. I didn't call out. I didn't leave my spot. I sat with my rifle across my lap and my back against that tree until the sky started to go gray. Then I packed everything and walked. 6 hours straight. I didn't stop. I barely looked down at the ground. I followed the compass and I followed the GPS and I refused to let my attention drift, because I had the overwhelming feeling that if I lost focus for even a moment, I'd find myself in another circle, further in, deeper than before. The backwards prints showed up twice more during that walk. Once crossing my path at an angle, fresh enough that the mud was still settling in the impression. Something had passed directly in front of me, recently, moving left to right, and I hadn't seen or heard anything. The second time was a single print behind me, as if something had stopped to watch me go. I didn't turn around after that. I just walked. I reached the river community late that afternoon. The first man who saw me came over right away and asked what had happened. I told him I'd gotten turned around. He looked at me for a long moment. Not the way people look at you when they believe you, more like the way they look when they know you're leaving something out. And then he nodded and didn't ask again. I flew home 4 days later. My wife said I looked like I had aged. I don't know about that. I know I didn't sleep well for close to a month. I know I stopped taking jobs that put me deep in the forest. I know there are things I used to feel comfortable with that I don't anymore. Certain kinds of silence, certain kinds of shadow, the specific quality of light on a forest floor when the canopy is too thick and the air underneath doesn't move. I keep coming back to one thing, the detail I can't stop turning over. When I cleared the trees and reached the community, I checked the time. It was late afternoon, nearly 5 o'clock. I had left camp at dawn, around 5:30 in the morning. 6 hours of walking, I thought. I had been moving since first light, but that night, when I went through the GPS log, it showed a total distance traveled of less than 2 kilometers. I went through it 3 times. I checked the timestamps. I hadn't stopped recording. The unit had been running the entire time. Less than 2 kilometers. I don't know where the rest of that day went. I don't know what I was doing during those hours. I don't remember stopping. I don't remember sitting. I only remember walking, the compass, the mud, the silence, and the feeling. Constant, from the moment I found those first prints. That I was not moving through that forest on my own terms. I haven't been back. I won't go back. And the one thing I keep coming back to, the thing I still can't put to rest, it's not the figure I saw in the dark, or the circles I walked, or the silence that had no business being that complete. It's that single print behind me on the trail out. One print. No others near it, No trail leading to it or away from it. Just one impression in the mud. Toes pointing forward, the way prints do when something is standing still. Right where I had been standing, minutes before. Whatever it wasn't following me. That's what I keep realizing. The more time passes. It wasn't chasing me out of the forest. It was watching me leave.